Welcome along to the two-man wall. It's the first two-man wall since the Euro started here on Star Sports TV with Johnny Ward and Adam Russell. I think we've all been pretty intrigued by what's happened so far. Some really strong performances, obviously, by Italy and to an extent France, but a couple of drifters as well of some of the big names that surprised me. Adam, the best thing that has possibly happened ever in a live football game was Christian Eriksen's survival. I've heard Pat Nevin say the chance of his survival was, I think he was talking about something like 10% or something. I don't think people have almost forgotten about this, but like anyone who was watching it, including me, it shook me to the core. And I was thinking of young kids who were watching this, maybe some of them idolized Christian Eriksen. This could have been an absolute catastrophe. And like the fact that he came out alive, to me, anything that happens in the tournament after that is bonus territory, which we will talk about.
Not to get too serious too soon. Thankfully I wasn't watching the game at the time. Obviously, I've seen kind of the aftermath of that, but I remember very vividly watching Bolton's Fabrice Muamba have a cardiac arrest on the pitch at Tottenham. I think it was in 2012, and yeah, very similar situation. And I think the one kind of benefit that Eriksen had is that within kind of 60 seconds of him going down, he was being treated. And I think they managed to get a defibrillator to him within 3 minutes. And if you can get a defibrillator to someone who's in a cardiac arrest in under 3 minutes, it increases the chances of survival by 75%. So I think it just says how important it is to have defibrillators at all football stadiums. And to be honest, they should be everywhere. They should be everywhere you go. Defibrillators, because obviously these situations do happen, and not just on football pitches but to everyday normal people. And if we can do something to try and help people, to try and decrease the chances of people losing their lives to cardiac arrest, then we should definitely do that.
I lost a few quid on a bet actually that evening, and it was one of the, we all talk blandly about perspective and all that, but it was one of these situations where I would almost have taken just anything that day just for Christian Eriksen to go out live. I just think it would have been so devastating on many levels. Denmark have gone out to, let's cut to the chase on this. Denmark, obviously, I mean, the fact that they had to play that game against Finland, they've gone out to 50-1 on the back of that. They obviously will be in action today, and we'll see what happens. But it's all happening at the top. So Italy are into 11-2. They've been arguably the most impressive team in the sense of how together they've been. Mancini has definitely something special there emotionally and spiritually. This is a team that's very much together. On the flip side of that, though, I do wonder, do they have the talent of the likes of France, even Spain, certainly England? France 100-30, they did a very, very, I don't know, mature job with an XG of something like 0.6 in that game. They beat Germany. Italy 11-2 after their 2 wins. England sixes, who kind of drifted marginally on the basis of the fact that maybe other teams would be more impressive. But England, I think England have a major chance and did the job well in game 1. Belgium also drifted 13-2. They did the job in a very workmanlike manner. Portugal overcame Hungary. They're 15-2, 3 late goals there. Spain 9-1 would be very tempting to a lot of people. In Germany 11-1. Obviously on the basis that they lost their first game. And then you're into 14-1 Netherlands, 50s bar. It is really an intriguing market here.
Yeah, there's been a lot of movement since we looked at it this time last week before the tournament started. Obviously, whether Italy to go from 8-1 into 11-2, obviously they've had the benefit of, we've seen them twice already, and they've been very impressive both times. But whether 8-1 into 11-2 is a bit of an overreaction in the market. It's become very, very fashionable to tip up Italy this week off the back of those 2 games. But you'll remember that we've been tipping them up since January, when we first started talking about the Euros and some of the internationals. The thing that they have going for them that could be really important as the tournament progresses is just plain simple form. They've won their last 9 games without conceding a single goal. They're 29 games unbeaten in total. They've obviously got off to the perfect start in the group.
They've also been playing in Italy, though, and they're clearly not as good as France on paper.
No, but it wouldn't be the first time that a side that's not as good on paper has gone on to win the tournament. The Italians themselves know in 2006 that they were far from, on paper, they're far from the best side in that World Cup, and they went on to win it. Portugal in 2016.
2006. Had to bring that up when, of course, I backed France.
Of course.
At
And
14s or something, a massive price at the time. I went against the grain. And maybe that's what people listening this morning and watching will be like, how am I going to go against the early trends in this tournament? Like, I'm back someone like Spain at 9s.
yeah, and I think, yeah, again with the France moving in from 9-2 all the way into 10-3 after their win, there's not a lot of value there at the minute. It's maybe not worth taking a punt on France, like you say. Maybe you want to look a bit
What do you
outside
make of them? Because they've this like they've
solid.
if you look at their actual midfield three, which is obviously Pogba, Kante, and Rabiot, who's a smashing player, I think it's not really like the strongest midfield three in terms of, oh yeah, these lads will be able to look after our game here. But they've so much pace through obviously Mbappe in particular that they've decided that we're going to bore our way to winning games by basically giving up possession. And I actually think it's, maybe it'll backfire at some stage, but I think it's a very sound logic that if you can kind of like play within yourselves and use Mbappe's pace. See, what do they have? 3 goals disallowed against Germany. I know they didn't create many chances, but they're going to score goals.
Yeah, you'd think they're going to score goals. The one thing I would say is that in 2018 they weren't particularly exciting throughout the tournament. They were very solid, had a very solid base with that back four. The midfielders do a great job. Obviously, Kante is N'Golo Kante. And
possibly their most important player in some ways because he's so vital to the way they play.
He's the one that allows the other players to go and do what they can do. The likes of Pogba, especially, just looks a completely different player playing alongside like Kante than he does. And at Manchester United, he's not trusted to play in that midfield three because in the big games, Solskjaer always seems to go Fred and McTominay sitting and almost seems to drift Pogba out to the left. But we saw in their first game that if you can get Pogba on the ball in central areas and in dangerous areas, that you've got a world-class player who's capable of creating things and making
France
things
have a better back four as well. I think that's part of the whole like France have such a good defense that they can kind of get away with it to an extent.
And they can bring people in who are sat on the bench who are equally as brilliant, and they can call people up who aren't even in the squad who are equally as good. They've got so much depth that it's hard to look past them, obviously, given what they did in 2018. But in a one-off game, once we get to those knockout games, especially if, like you say, if they do sit up quite defensively, then there's no reason why any team in England and a Belgium and Italy can't win a game against them, can't nick a game against them by any means. I think if you're looking for value at the minute, if Belgium have moved out from 13-2, I don't quite see that drift. Obviously, they've only played once, and maybe
De Bruyne hasn't even played yet.
No, and Hazard was obviously on the bench. He's obviously trying to come up to fitness as well. And they played very well. They played really well. And obviously they got the main man, got 2 goals, Lukaku, which will help, break him into the tournament. So I'm surprised to see them move out, but maybe it's a case of the others have performed well and that's just had a kind of a knock-on effect on the Belgium odds. But I still think at 13-2, they're very good value. This is maybe the last chance for this generation of Belgian players to go on and really make that impact at a major tournament. So
Spain weren't great against Sweden. There's no getting away from that. But I mean, it's very early days, and they've Luis Enrique has this team that it's kind of based on a very solid defense. I think defenses win tournaments like this in that you'll get through in games. You won't cough up chances, and you'll nick a goal. There are definitely 6 teams you could make a case for here so far.
You could, but I'm not going to. I just
not having Spain.
No, I wasn't having them before the tournament, and saw them in the Sweden game, and they were just lackluster. They looked, they didn't really have a cutting edge going forward. There was as Spain teams invariably do, they had a lot of possession, but it didn't feel penetrative enough. Didn't feel like they were incisive enough in the midfield, and I just don't think it's as good as Spain team. Well, it's definitely not as good as Spain team as we've seen down the years. But I don't think it's capable of winning the tournament. To be honest, it wouldn't even surprise me if they were one of the teams that become victim of a shot result in this group at some stage.
Well, there's a bit of pressure on after that. I mean, it wasn't a draw exactly where they dominated the game either. So there will be internal and external pressure on that.
Yeah, exactly. And they have, over the last few years, a lot of the tournament experience that they did have within the squad have retired or kind of not been selected. So is quite a young squad in that regard. So they are relying on the experience of people like, Jordi Alba and Alvaro Morata to a certain extent to kind of to see them through. But yeah, Spain, not for me. Another interesting drift, though, I think, given how, perennially successful they are at major tournaments, is Germany. Obviously, they weren't great against France by any means, but we're still talking about a German side that's full of quality and top European players. Obviously, now they're at 11-1. They've got a difficult group, but I think the problem that I found in this tournament, I don't know how you think, is that I'm not sure about the third place teams going through, whether that's had, whether it's had the desired effect on the tournament. I think
I've misgivings about the the expanded tournament in general. I remember when it was 8 teams, which was too little, but it's just obviously the qualification process is kind of rendered a little bit diluted as well. And the third place teams, there's no doubt these tournaments are greatly enriched by the likes of Iceland doing well, by Wales doing well, no doubt about that. But at the same time, the third place team in a group of 4, which, as you say, Germany losing to France isn't a catastrophe by any means.
Not even really a catastrophe if they lose to Portugal on Saturday, because a win against Hungary and they could still probably qualify as one of the third place teams. And as much as this group has produced some of the big games, and it will again on Saturday with Portugal and Germany, it's a big game. But when you know that not necessarily, it's not, their qualification isn't really riding on it. In a normal Euros, where if Germany loses this second game, they're basically out.
That's the story, and that's part of the drama.
Would have made this game, 10 times what it is going to be. And I'm not 100% sure about it. Someone made a point to me the other day that it's probably harder to win a European Championship than it is to win a World Cup. Like, you can get to a World
concentration on European teams versus compared to
and you can, like, if you look at England's run in 2018, for example, like, we got to a semi-final and played Croatia, we played Sweden in a quarter-final, we played Colombia in the last 16, which is not, we were almost in a final without having to play a really kind of major national team. So in the Euros, there's no way you can avoid them, though. You get them in your group. First knockout stage, we'll probably have Portugal if we win the group. So it's, you can't avoid them in a European Championship. It's so much harder to win, I think.
I hadn't thought about that, but that's a very interesting point, because African teams obviously don't win World Cups so far, and then Oceania, they don't win World Cups. You take away Europe and the North American teams, they don't win World Cups really. So then you're left to sort of Brazil, who were
South Americans. When was the last time Brazil won?
And Argentina have been like kind of underachieving now for a long time. So you're down to those 2 teams. So it's actually a fair point. But one team who has won a World Cup and who may win the Euros is England. And David Jennings was the race for us. We were having a bit of banter after the Scotland games. The Czechs, I think England will absolutely dominate Scotland. I don't see it at all. But Geno thinks Scotland will put it up to England. Now, let us get to the match odds, because this is going to be, particularly from the Irish perspective of watching the tournament, this is going to be a game that will leave us absolutely engrossed. To see I think probably a lot of us adopting Wales as maybe the team to follow after their win last night. But let me get the match odds up here somewhere.
Yeah, it's going to be obviously England
3
against
to 10, 4s and 9. Sorry.
It's all right. England against Scotland is always a huge game. It's actually only the second time we've ever met at a major tournament, due to the fact that the Scots never qualify. And obviously it was that famous Euro 96 game, and what an occasion that was. Although I wasn't born until a few months after that, supposedly it was a big occasion.
You remember it well.
Yeah. But just goes.
Were you in the womb actually whilst that game was on? Like, was your mother probably TV on the background?
Yeah, she won't have been drinking during this game, I don't think.
How noble of her.
Yeah, I was September, so I would have been, around the corner at this point. But
the world is about to change forever.
How big an occasion that was, that we still, I still know about. We talk about it regularly, and it's going to be, a massive occasion for England and Scotland fans. I agree with you. I think England are a much better team, and on paper they should win comfortably. But England and Scotland games, there's something about them. Obviously, I was saying the last 4 meetings, I think this century are averaging 4 goals a game. Everyone remembers the 2-2 at Hampden Park in 2017. Lee Griffiths scored 2 free kicks and thought that he'd won it for the Scots. And then Harry Kane scored an equaliser in the last minute. There was a 3-2 at Wembley in 2013. I think Ricky Lambert scored. You know, and England are always on paper the better side in these occasions, but you know, football isn't played on paper; it's played on grass. So I think with the atmosphere, with the occasion, I think it will be quite tense until hopefully England get that first goal. And I think after that, we could see, you know, the Scots will have to go for it then. If they want to give themselves a chance of qualifying.
You've come up with an interesting bet here, actually, which is definitely one to ruminate over. England to win by 2 and over 3.5 total cards. Now, obviously, you see the angle for cards, notwithstanding the fact that there'll be a lot of passion on display. England have a lot of pace, so pacey players mean that players are going to get fouled and going to get booked.
Yeah, and I do wonder whether it might be kind of part of the Scotland game plan to, you know, get under the England feathers a little bit, particularly if the likes of Foden, Grealish, Sterling are starting. Then they might just want to give them a bit of a kicking early on. You know the old phrase, let them know that you're there early on. I think with the atmosphere, it could be, you know, the things might just get a little bit heated early on. The referee might be quite keen to kind of stamp his authority on the game early on. So I think 3.5 total cards in the game is fair. And like you say, I've put that in with England to win by 2 goals because I do think we'll win comfortably. The other one that I picked out was England to win to 0, Kane and Sterling both to score. The only question on that is obviously, will Sterling play? You know, there's been some suggestions this week that Southgate might, you know, take this opportunity to maybe rotate a few players. Obviously, with so many attacking options that he can bring in, the likes of Rashford, Sancho, Grealish, etc., that can all come in. It's just whether Sterling plays. But I wonder with, as we saw at the weekend, whether, you know, Sterling is his man and we know Kane's his man, whether he'll stick with those two and maybe rotate Foden, maybe rotate Mason Mount, maybe rotate at left back as well. And Sterling and Kane might still get the nod. So I think, yeah, them to score, England to win to 0, 15-2 is a good bet. What an opportunity for the English, though, to just, as we did in 2018, just to lay down some momentum. The first time in European Championships that we've won the first 2 games, only the 4th time we'd ever done it in major tournaments. But obviously it'd be the 2nd time in a row Southgate's done it. And we saw in 2018 that once you start to win, the momentum builds, the draws starts coming in, you start lining up who you're going to be playing in what round, and the excitement builds. And this is a great opportunity for England to get one over on the big rivals, build some momentum, and really kind of kick off that Euros fever.
Well, I suspect England will be playing quite a few big rivals in this tournament subsequent to this. I like the -2 angle in the Asian at 19-10 because I think, Adam, Scotland after the Czech game, they will have to kind of come out a bit. They can't, like, they do need a result in this game to some extent. And if England go ahead, I think they'll be able to manage the game. And I think maybe Southgate is kind of going to not play exactly like France, but if you have pace on the break, it just changes everything. You can kind of just absorb pressure, sit back, go goal up, just let things happen and realize that you've so much quality, even off the bench as well. So -2, 19-10 for me. Portugal v Germany. This is a really, really compelling game. I didn't know what to make of Germany against France. I thought France were kind of always had them at arm's length. But at the same time, Portugal were only okay against Hungary. They left it quite late. The odds in this one, 21-10 Portugal, 9-4 the draw, 13-10 Germany. I think those odds reflect the fact that Germany obviously lost their first game. There's more pressure on them, but to be honest now, I wouldn't have that much between them. I'd probably be going Portugal 6-5 draw, no bet here.
Yeah, to be honest, I was struggling to kind of split them. I was looking at maybe some angles where I could happily sit on the fence for this one. Like you say, against France, Germany weren't terrible, but they did just feel like they were missing something in attack. I'm not sure Serge Gnabry playing as a central striker worked. The ball came back off him quite a lot at times when he really needed to hold it up. And I think with Gnabry, Muller and Havertz as a 3 in front of a midfield 4 and a back 3, they just maybe weren't mobile enough in wide areas. I think obviously Kimmich at right wing back and Gosens at left wing back. I think Gosens was good, but I just think they've got the likes of Leroy Sané, who obviously came on.
He was
Got
disappointing
yeah,
when he came on. Germany were actually favourites against France as well. I know it was in Germany, but I thought that was strange.
Yeah, I thought that was strange as well. I think it just goes to show, especially in these early tournament games, the market's not really sure where to go sometimes. So there's definitely some opportunities still there in punters, as we were talking about with the outrights here. There's a lot of fluctuation going on at the minute based on certain performances. So if you as a punter are fairly certain that you know who's gonna go the distance, then there's some opportunities for you left.
We're both with Portugal here.
Yeah, I think if I had to pick one, I think Portugal will probably edge it. I'm not 100% convinced on Germany. The thing they could get on a run and they're a great tournament team, but I just wonder whether, obviously with Akim Low leaving after the tournament and a disappointing campaign in 2018, whether this is maybe not the tournament for them, and obviously they've got a difficult group, but I'm not sure. I think both teams to score under 3.5 goals, under 2.5 cards, which was how I was sitting on a fence by not picking a winner. Not sure it'll be a massively high goal scoring game. I think the Germans will set up quite resolutely. I think we saw Portugal against Hungary. They didn't kind of let their attacking players off the leash until the very last 15, 20 minutes when they were looking for a goal. And obviously with that win in their pocket, they maybe don't need the win as much as the Germans. So I think, under 3.5 is fairly safe. Under 2.5 cards and both teams score, that's 8-1. Looking at goal scorers, seeing that Thomas Muller actually has never scored a European Championship goal, but we know that he is a big game player. So I think he might pop up with his first European Championship goal. And I was impressed by the energy of Diogo Jota in Portugal's first game against Hungary.
Yeah, he's going to be vital because Ronaldo. Well, I mean, fairness to Ronaldo, as much as he was brilliant late on, he is getting on a bit.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's hard to know what to make of that Ronaldo performance because he wasn't brilliant. Like, he didn't play particularly well. He was out of the game for long periods, but he's a goal scorer, isn't he? So you give him a chance, and he walks off with 2 goals, and happy days to a certain extent. So that's why they need the likes of Jota and Fernandes and Bernardo Silva around him, who have got so much energy and they have got so much dynamism to kind of support him. And I think Jota might pop up with a goal in this one, along with Thomas Muller. That's 14-1. And if I had to pick one, Portugal might edge it 11-5.
Yeah, and check out the website. There's obviously the microsite. Check out the website. We've got top goal scorers for a scatter of individual teams, high scoring teams, straight forecast, name the finalists, obviously your top goal scorer, player of the tournament to reach the final, so on and so forth. Last word, Adam, just on the Welsh. I just thought they were really, really good against a fairly insipid Turkey team, but it was just a great performance. I thought Wales would struggle in the heat in Baku, as I did when I was there, and I wasn't playing football for 90 minutes. None of it.
Did you only get 45 in when you were in Baku?
I got about 4 hours in, but that was in the boozer afterwards.
No, okay.
Yeah.
I was really impressed with the Welsh. I thought they played really, really well. They fully deserved the win, and they could have had more goals. To be honest with you, if particularly Ramsey in the first half had maybe been a bit more clinical, but there'd been some criticism leveled at Gareth Bale after the first game. And he wasn't great in the first game, but he pulled all the strings in this game.
My brother backed him to score. He was gutted. He was. I was like, how can you? And then I told him to get his money back by backing unders in the Italy game. They got a turn pretty much the last minute, so he had a good day.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. Obviously, the penalty. He had a great opportunity to get one there, but he leads that Welsh side in every way. Every player looks to him to kind of provide something. He was dropping deep. And putting balls in behind for the runners of Ramsey and James. Late on, he wanted the ball. Even after missing the penalty, he wanted to be the man in possession. He wanted to make something happen. Obviously, we saw with the second goal, a lot of players might have, held it in the corner, but he did it twice. One corner after the other. He tried to beat a man and set up the second goal. And I think when Gareth Bale plays like that, he's up there with any player in the world. And the way he leads that side and lifts that side is really amazing to see. And I wouldn't be surprised if the performances that he puts in leads him to a top club in Europe, trying to take a gamble on him this summer. Obviously, he wasn't, by any means, he wasn't bad at Spurs last season, particularly at the end of the season. He put in some good performances. So surprising to see that he's not been linked, with some of the bigger clubs in Europe taking a gamble on him. He's only 31, so.
I think Galway United or Bolton would take him.
Oh, I don't know. We've just bought a couple of left-sided players. So yeah. I know Galway probably would, but yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure about the Whites. We're moving forward now.
Well, we're all moving forward together. Enjoy the games this weekend. Can't wait for England and Scotland. I think this tournament is just getting going.
Just needs a big result, I think, to ignite.
Yeah.
It.
Well,
the Danes against Belgium tonight.
Not having that, I can't all over Belgium there. But I think it's the context of Denmark with Eriksen and the fact that they don't have him now. But at the same time, will there be an emotional? Who knows? Anyway, Adam Russell, that was two-man wall.